Okay, we keep reading. Singenpoo shoots through. Please don't do that. Chapter 3. After about 10 minutes, Singenpoo came back. It was good to see her. I was starting to get worried. So was Felicity. "Where's Jack gone?" she said. Just at that moment, Jack stumbled in. "That is the worst outfit I have ever seen," I whispered to the boss. "It's a bunyip outfit," he said. "A bunyip?" I yelled. "There's no such thing." It was crazy. No one would believe that Jack was a bunyip. The green fur was falling out and there were bald spots everywhere. The only bits that looked real were the webbed feet and hands. The face mask had green hair and funny eyes. Talk about weird. "Okay," said the boss. "The customers are lining up. Get into the tank, Jack." Jack climbed eagerly into the tank. He plunged into the water with a big splash and started swimming around underwater. I tell you what, Jack couldn't talk, but he sure could swim. He was even better than the mermaid. He was having a great time. Singenpoo couldn't take her eyes off the performance. The boss looked at me and Singenpoo. "Okay," he said, "now it's your turn to put on a show." "Come on, Singenpoo," I said. "We're on." She didn't seem to want to come. I had to pick her up and carry her into our sideshow tent. There was already a big crowd waiting to see her do her stuff. I picked up the microphone and looked at the audience. I was very nervous. It was my first real day and I wanted to make a big impression. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "please welcome Singenpoo, the cat who can read." People clapped politely. "Not only can Singenpoo read," I said, "but she can write too." I could see the people gasped and look at each other. They didn't believe it. I smiled at Singenpoo, but she didn't seem to notice. I started to grow worried. Her mind was on something else. What if she refused to perform? I took Singenpoo over to the computer and put her in front of the screen. "Just call out a word," I said to the audience, "and Singenpoo will type it out." "Rhinoceros," shouted a cheeky little kid in the front row. I nodded at Singenpoo nervously. Rhinoceros was a hard word. Singenpoo started to tap on the keyboard. Tap, 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 tap. I stared at the screen. Jack. Singenpoo had typed the word Jack. Oh no, this was terrible. Some people in the audience laughed. One person booed. "Give them a go," called the nice old lady. "Someone else," I said. "Anyone, give me another word." "Pig," said the old lady. "Good. An easy word." I nodded at Singenpoo, but I could have saved my breath. She was tapping away already. "Is a prisoner." What was this? Jack is a prisoner? Singenpoo had gone crazy. People started to boo and shout. Others were looking puzzled, but most thought we were phonies. "Fake! Put up job, it's a computer trick. We want our money back." Singenpoo looked up at the angry mob. She was frightened. "It's okay, girl," I said. "Settle down." But Singenpoo didn't settle down. She was terrified by all the yelling. She started to shake and meow. Suddenly she shot out of the tent and disappeared from sight. The crowd was angry. People surged towards the exit, waving their tickets, shouting and asking for a refund. The boss was upset. He wanted people to like his shows. Okay, he yelled. "You can have your money back." This was bad. But the worse was to come. More people were streaming out of Felicity's sideshow tent. They were yelling and wanting their money back too. They didn't like Jack's bunyip act. "What a rip-off," said a bloke with a long beard. "That is the worst outfit I've ever seen," said a woman who was with him. "Call that a bunyip?" said a mean-looking kid. "Bunyips don't have ears like that. I want my money back." Both shows were total failures. The boss had to give everyone a refund. He went off shaking his head and waving his arms at the sky. I searched the ground with my eyes looking for Singenpoo, but she was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, Felicity walked out of her tent, dragging Jack behind her. It reminded me of a mother pulling a little kid along in a supermarket. Poor Jack stumbled and nearly fell. I guessed it must have been hard to walk in that hot rubbery bunyip outfit. I knew you were past it, she said sadly. I shouldn't have let you go on. Singenpoo, I called. Singenpoo, where are you? I searched high and low. I peered under caravans and inside every trailer. I pushed past the crowds and tried to shout over the roar of the stunt motorbikes. I even looked somewhere Singenpoo would never go, inside the juggling dog's tent. But there was nothing. Singenpoo had disappeared. It was hopeless. I was really worried as I walked back to our caravan. Singenpoo was a very sensitive cat. She would have been upset by all the yelling. What if she had been hit by a dodgem car or stood on by an elephant? I couldn't bear to think about it. It would be so lonely without Singenpoo. Where are you, girl? I said to nobody. Please come home. I wished I had never seen this carnival. I didn't want the stupid job in a sideshow anymore. I would have to find another way of getting money for Mum. I didn't care whether Singenpoo read words or didn't read words. I just wanted her back. I loved her more than anything in the world. I thought about the way she curled up on my bed at night. I remembered how she licked ice cream off my fingers with her rough tongue. She loved me more than anyone else. Or did she? Jack. She was mad about Jack. But she couldn't be with him, could she? Not inside Felicity's caravan. She wouldn't have hidden him there. She'd never choose Jack over me, would she? I ran crazily towards Felicity's caravan, pushing my way through the crowd. Singenpoo, 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 I called out in desperation. I reached the fake mermaid's caravan and peered in through the windows. The van was empty. A number of rubber fishtails hung from pegs on the wall. There were dishes in the sink and 2 unmade beds. But there was no one there. I rattled the door. It was still locked. So where was Jack? That's when I noticed it. The air vent in the caravan roof. It was broken off, and the fly wire had a big hole in it. Something sharp like a knife or claws had ripped a hole in the fly wire. Jack had escaped. But where was Singenpoo? I had to find her. I tried to blink back the tears that were prickling my eyes. I staggered back into the tent where Singenpoo had done her act. There was still no sign of her. But the computer caught my eye. I looked at the screen. Some new words had been written there. Dear Scott, I have to save Jack. He is... The message wasn't finished, but I knew who had written it. Singenpoo, and she must have left in a hurry. She had run away with Jack. Jack couldn't look after her properly. He was too old and too doddery. At this very moment, Singenpoo could be under the wheels of a truck or in the jaws of a dog. Why had she done it? I knew the answer, but I didn't want to face it. The truth was that she liked Jack better than me. She didn't want me anymore. I walked out of the tent in a daze. I had heard of cats going to live with someone else. Mrs. Bridge, who lived next door to my mum, had a cat like that. Once, Mrs. Bridge had gone to the hospital and come home with a new baby. That very day, her cat had moved in with the people over the road. It wouldn't come back, not for anything. Now Singenpoo had gone off with Jack. After so long together, after all we'd been through, I was devastated. Jack's gone off with your cat, said a voice. It was Felicity. Tears were streaming down her face. You should keep it locked up, she said. It's a menace. If I get my hands on it, I cut her off. Singenpoo can go where she likes, I yelled. If she likes Jack better than me, well, she can go with him. You can't force a pet to love you. We both stared at each other, thinking about what I had just said. Would I really let Singenpoo go? Or would I rip her out of Jack's arms and lock her up in my bedroom? My mum wouldn't let me go off into danger, so why should I let Singenpoo leave, even if she wanted to? The cat is a menace, Felicity sobbed. If I catch it, I'll teach it to stay away from my Jack. He was happy with me. The cat is leading him astray. He doesn't want to go. He's my Jack. Mine, mine, mine. Her voice grew loud and squeaky and her eyes flashed in a weird way. She started to rush all over the place, looking under caravans and boxes. Singenpoo was in danger. If Felicity caught up with her, anything might happen. She seemed to have gone crazy. I rushed out of the carnival site and onto the road. Where were they? Where were the runaways? I had to find them before Felicity did. Chapter 4. I stared up the street. I stared down the street. Nothing. Not a sign. Hang on. Yes. There was a sign. There on the footpath. An arrow. A wet arrow traced out on the ground. I bent down and touched it with the tip of one finger and sniffed. Yes, it was cat wee. And not just any cat wee. It was Singenpoo's for sure. I would have known it anywhere. Singenpoo wanted me to follow. She had written a sign the only way she could. What a relief. What a cat. I began to run along the road in the direction of the arrow. I came to a crossroad. Now which way? Where had they gone? Oh yes, look, another arrow pointing to the left. Singenpoo was leaving arrows at every turn. I hurried on. There was no time to waste. I was worried that the wee arrows would evaporate in the hot sun. I followed the arrows through the town and out into the countryside. Where were the escapees heading? What were they up to? I had to catch them. At every turn or crossroad there was an arrow, but each time I found one it was smaller than the one before. Then I realised what was happening. Singenpoo was running out of wee. I had to catch up and fast before I lost them. After another 10 minutes I came to a fork in the road. There were no houses or people to be seen anywhere. And there was no arrow either. I dropped down onto my knees and searched. There must be a sign somewhere. Yes, there was. One of the arrows, small and faint, was just drying out in the rays of the sun. I knew which way to go. Something made me look back down the road. Someone was coming. A woman. Felicity was following us. She stopped and fell down onto her knees and sniffed at the road. She was following the arrows too. She wanted to find Jack and Singenpoo as much as I did. Oh no, I had to do something. I had to throw her off the scent.